morning everyone and welcome to HJ Goes Live. I'm Sian Jones, Deputy Editor at Hairdressers Journal, and today we're discussing the new Olaplex No.4D dry shampoo with their incredible artist Halley Brisker. Halley is a London-based hairstylist known for creating glamorous red carpet ready looks with clients such as Margot Robbie, Emma Watson, Lily James, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Julianne Moore and Kerry Mulligan, to name just a few. His work has appeared in domestic and international Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar, Glamour, GQ and many, many more. So I'm just going to invite him to the live now, and he's very excited to if he's able to join. Hi, morning, Halley.
Hiya.
How are you?
Doing very well, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. Lovely to see you this morning.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course, pleasure.
And how are you? What have you been up to recently?
So I've just returned from, I'm back in London now at home. I've just returned from Los Angeles, where most people I'm probably sure have seen, we've had the Oscars happening. So a number of my clients that I work with have been busy out there in the week leading up to that. So we completed a busy week of things, events, and Versace had their show out there, which they've never done before. Some warm-up award ceremonies leading up to the Oscars, and then Vanity Fair night and the awards. So yeah, it was a heavy 8 days, but it was great.
Yeah, that sounds intense. How do you begin to even prepare for something like that?
I mean, I think there's always an element of surprise, and you don't always know what will happen. But I think when you work with clients regularly, and you have a good relationship with them, and you do these things year round, you get used to it, and you've always got things cooking for your clients, things you want to achieve with them, and the relationship with the team, the style guys and the makeup and everything like that. You have a head start on stuff like that, so it's excellent fun, especially with social media now these days. Everything's so sort of instant, so you get a lot of feedback and you see things go live. So yeah, it's great. It's really good.
Brilliant. And now you're ready for a bit of downtime. You're home in London.
Yeah, a little bit. I've actually had a few days off, which is nice before we get going on some more projects. So yeah, no, it's been excellent. That was an excellent week. It was really fun, and it's always great to be out there in LA when you've got stuff like the Oscars going on. It's exciting.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. So now we've got you. Can you tell me a bit about the new 4D Volume Detox Dry Shampoo from Olaplex?
Yes. So as the name suggests, obviously it's a new dry shampoo to come onto the market alongside previous or existing products that have sort of talked about doing the same thing. For me, it's a very special product because it does things which previous sort of things on the market haven't done, which is, it's really powerful when it comes to sort of cleaning and detoxifying the hair, which is excellent, because I think most people feel probably when having used dry shampoos in the past that they can be heavy, cakey, leave powder residues in the hair, and this is a very special product which kind of doesn't do that stuff. It's extremely detoxifying, which is great. It's great for the scalp as well. It leaves clear pores. It's weightless. It has obviously some very special ingredients in it as well, like the rambutan seed extract and micro starches. So it's got some real sort of special science behind it as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure to use, because for me, traditionally, I've actually left dry shampoos out of my kit, because I found that it's funny, because people will often ask me, like, and not necessarily my clients, but the people that I'm working with around might come along and go, "Oh, Halley, you haven't got any dry shampoo, have you, by the way?" Someone that I'm working with that's on the team, not necessarily my talent. And they'll expect me, like, they'd think that's standard, right, to just have something like that in your kit as a hairdresser. But I've always left them out traditionally, because as I say, when it comes to a moment where you think, oh, I might use one of these, you use it traditionally, and it doesn't actually really clean the hair. It just sort of soaks up some oils and natural substances, but it will leave you with more weight to the hair, with a sort of cakey substance, white residue. And then using this, when I debuted this product, I tried it, while it was still being created, when we were doing some projects with Olaplex, and it was an absolutely brilliant product. I absolutely loved it immediately. So that was like a real turning point for me. I was like, do you know what? I could actually add this to my kit and it will work.
So this is like a real game changer, that you've added it to your kit.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
how have you been using it? I mean, did you use it recently when you were in LA?
Yeah, I use it all the time. In fact, I absolutely caned a whole can of it when I was out there. So, and I was actually this morning going, oh, do you know what? Like, I hope I've actually got some still here, because obviously, like, I've always got a stockpile of Olaplex now. But I was just going to, I have another one here. So I was just going through my stuff this morning thinking, actually, I hope I need to call them and let them know, because I've just gone through loads of cans of it. Funnily enough, I mean, look, the thing is because I work in a professional way as opposed to a consumer way, there comes a point when you're working with hair that from where I stand, that obviously, look, it needs to be clean. There comes a point where if hair is dirty enough, we need to wash it.
Yeah.
But there's that middle gap area. There's that middle window where we might not need to go that far. We might have time constraints in what we're doing. We've got a couple of hours. Everybody needs to achieve what they need to do on the team to get somebody out the door onto the carpet or whatever. So you haven't always got time to do that, unless it's a critical scenario where you're like, but that would never happen. I mean, my clients know better than to come with, yeah. But like I say, there is often a window where, it's a day old or a day and a half old since being washed, and it's at that point where I go, do you know what? Okay, so my 4D will really help me in that scenario, because it's not dirty enough to be washed, and it's not quite clean enough not to consider using it. So you'll pull it out, and because it's got this ultra fine microstarch, the rambutan seed extract, and it detoxifies the scalp and cleanses the hair, I can bring it back closer to that freshly washed feel without adding extra weight to the hair, because that's like a consideration for me. As I say, like, the important thing about this this chat that we're having is that we're discussing this from a professional point of view, not a consumer point of view. So, and that will help consumers be led on this, but obviously all of my work is going to come from a professional point of view. So there will be people who will use this when it's dirtier than I would, the hair, so to speak. And it will do that job very well. So I think it's key to note for the consumer as well that it will do this without adding extra weight, which is really nice. And a lot of people won't mind that in their consumer life. On their day-to-day situations, that's not a factor for them, but it is for me, because I've got to think about the micro details rather than just the macro scenario of like, oh, I need to just sort of like get my hair a little bit cleaner just so I can go out the door.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm looking at the micro, like things like a small amount of weight added to the hair, for me, will make a big difference to how it ends up in an hour's time when they've walked the carpet or whatever. So for me, it's fascinating to be able to have something that I can use without the concerns that I previously would have had with things like adding too much dullness to the hair through white residues, adding the extra weight, which will maybe pull the movement down that I've put in, little things like that. I mean, I think I was looking at some of their studies, and I think 100% of people asked on this had said they found no white residue.
Oh wow. And you hear that a lot, for probably a lot of consumer dry shampoos.
Yes.
That's always that you hear about. So
Absolutely, because the formulas haven't changed for years and years, basically. So it's just been a repeat of people will release dry shampoos and they will just repeat a formula, which I guess for people that haven't felt has needed to change, but from a professional's point of view, it has needed to, because as I say, the proof is in the pudding, which is that I never carry dry shampoo in my kit traditionally, because it traditionally had no use for me whatsoever.
So I guess one of the questions, why do you love Olaplex? Is it because they're creating these products that are changing your mind about dry shampoos, and they're looking at these formulas and asking these questions?
Yeah. I think also, before I come on to that, I don't want to forget a really key benefit to this for me, which is that often I've often spoke to people over the years who've said, so I actually kind of use my dry shampoo like to add a bit of texture. And I don't know if you can resonate with that at all, but like if you're going out and your hair's clean, but you put a bit of movement in it, and you sort of put a bit of product X or Y into it just to give it a bit of plump or whatever. Again, it was sort of a misnomer or a fallacy that it did that. It made you feel like it did that, but for me, whenever I used to test that out on previous products, it didn't do that. It just added weight and it added powder. But this has been, like, genuinely, this has been a brilliant game changer for me, because I think that Olaplex haven't realized that they've bridged a gap, like inadvertently not realized doing that, which is that when I look for a texture spray, I look for a certain level of tack in that texture spray, like a stickiness, something that gives me like a texture to really work with, like to bring out. Usually I'm going for something heavy, like I want to really bring out that beachy texture, or the bedhead feel. Now, sometimes I might want to add a little bit of texture to something like a roller blowout, which I need loads of shine in still, and it needs to move and it needs to not be stuck. This gives me a little bit of texture in at the roots to plump it out, and something to work with, so the hair feels like it has some guts in it, but it doesn't go as far as the previous ones. And it was really hard for me to find something which gave me a tiny bit of texture but loads of shine still, but not, as I say, like, just bridging that gap in between those two had been really difficult for me. And so this now, because as I say, my clients often are very good with making sure their hair is clean, I'll go through cans of this now, just adding texture to like blowouts and stuff. So I think there's a really interesting aspect to it, which might not have been the initial driving factor behind creating it, but it does this really cool thing where it gives us this middle ground texture, like not the heavy texture sprays that we're traditionally used to, but it's just something a little bit less than that.
So for you, it's doing what you've kind of wanted dry shampoo to do all along.
Yeah, well, and it's doing two jobs, which is great, and it does them both really well. So yeah, I'm really pleased with it. I think it's great, and as I say, I think the key messages on it are just like so super clean, super light, feels great on the scalp, no white residues, with some really, really interesting ingredients in it, which leads me back to obviously your question about, why Olaplex.
Olaplex,
Yeah, and I think, the key is that they're a brand which are really invested in science, which is great for me, because, their results speak for themselves. So it's a brand that has huge ambitions, and, not just my clients, but also, like, I've got someone in the house with me, my wife, who has been like a perfect sort of guinea pig. She's been using Olaplex daily for best part of like 9-10 months now, and I mean her hair's just the best I've ever seen it. So I think to have a brand that backs up its claims with really good science, for me, was a no-brainer when it came to thinking about why I might want to partner with Olaplex.
And what was that journey like to becoming an Olaplex artist? You know, how did that begin?
I I became in touch with somebody very senior at Olaplex through social media, actually, just through my work that had been out there, and it's something I suppose they liked, which I'm very grateful for, obviously. And we made a personal connection. Often a lot of connections come through my management, the wall group, but we formed a personal connection through social media and sat down and talked about what we were both up to, both sides, and it just grew from there. You know, nothing happens overnight, but we had a conversation and going and discussing, you know, what I was up to and how we might want to work together, and yeah, it just grew from there really over the best part of the year, and ended up as a really great match, really. So,
Brilliant. And you've been able to do some amazing things with Olaplex since then.
yeah, definitely. But I think, I think what's really nice as well is, they've also got things like a focus on the planet as well, which is really nice when it comes to, the way they do their packaging, thinking about trees and greenhouse gas emissions, and things like that. So, you don't feel like you're compromising your standards, and about the ambitions of a brand, which sometimes happens when you work with major global brands. But I think Olaplex are really focused on their science, their technology, their results, and also things outside of that, like I say, like the environment and the sort of carbon footprint of their products and their processes. So yeah, I think all of those things together make it like a no-brainer.
And so can you talk a bit more about the bond building technology and how it works? As you talked about, the science behind it all.
Yeah, I think there's also been a lot of misinformation out there, about, how the protein stuff works in the hair, and what that does or doesn't do. And I think it's important to sort of correct those messages as well, which is that, like, as I say, they work very hard on their campuses in the US on their science. And they've been doing this for a long time, and the results are definitely there. And I think basically, you have some, when pronouncing all of these scientific things is quite difficult, but like disulfide bonds are what, when they're basically broken down in the hair, that's what results in what we see as damage. And Olaplex works to restore these bonds from within, essentially, and it's their patented technology, which they have. Again, it's really hard to, I think I've written it down here because it's so hard to pronounce, but the aminopropyl diglycol demeliate is the name of is what they work with.
I'll take your word for it.
It's a mouthful, and that their scientists, I've sat and spoken to Olaplex, about how amazing their scientists are. And that's their patented technology, and their patented technology works from within on those disulfide broken bonds to repair those from within, and that's throughout their entire range. That's everything from like your shampoos and conditioners, your treatments, through to your balms, which are leave-in, the oils, and even into the bond building technology, into the Olaplex 4D. So it's fascinating stuff. And as I say, I've sat down with the guys at Olaplex and we talked about visiting there possibly at some stage, and because I would love to see those processes firsthand. But that science, as I say, working on those broken bonds and repairing them from within are what helps to see those amazing results, essentially.
And so why do you think a stylist or a salon should be using Olaplex?
Well, I think, if you have a salon, or if you are dedicated to doing what I do, then you're heavily invested in the idea of your client's hair looking the best it can possibly be. And I think that, someone said a long time ago, which is a great quote, it was like, hair's the only accessory that you never take off. So you come home and you take your earrings off, or you take your bag off, or you take your shoes off, but you've got to wear your hair 24/7, or you even take your makeup off. And we know how much people love makeup, and how popular that is. so as a medium of expression. So, you know, but the hair, you can't take that off. And so I think that when clients feel like their hair is in the best possible state it can be, there's a joy that comes from that. And a relaxedness of knowing that you haven't got that concern, especially with the people that I work with who have their hair repeatedly done, all, you know, over and over. So, you know, there's lots of choices out there, but working, you know, if you using Olaplex as let's say a salon, for example, everywhere, all the way from, you know, the scientific side of mixing in with your color, which is an amazing process, right through to like aftercare. If you know, if that's adhered to properly and used consistently, in my opinion, personally, you won't have an example of better conditioned hair. And I think that's what keeps people coming back to you.
Brilliant. Well, it has been so lovely catching up with you today, Halley. I'm excited to see what's coming up in the future. I've got lots of wonderful events in the pipeline that you can't tell us about.
I mean, there's lots of, I mean, it's more that life's always moving around, and, you know, I often don't know what I'm going to be doing next week, or I might know what I may be doing next week, but it can change around. It's not, you know, top secret or anything. It's just things are always changing around and traveling. But there's a lot more trips to the US planned this year. We've got the Met Gala coming up, which should be interesting. All sorts. So
You're watching through your social media.
It's, I try to keep on top of that. So if anybody needs to know, then the latest stuff should be on there for sure.
Yeah, we'll be on there watching vicariously through you. So thank you so much for joining us, and obviously to Olaplex for sponsoring this session. And hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. Yeah,
and I hope everybody gets a chance to have a go with the Olaplex 4D, because, as I say, it's definitely a game changer, and it's a dry shampoo that nobody's ever tried before.
Brilliant. Now it's part of your kit, so it speaks for itself.
Definitely.
Fab. Thank you so much, Halley.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Have a good day.
See you later. Bye-bye.